Hi, folks. I'm Adrian Sanabria, the host of Enterprise Security Weekly. Every week, we interview the most interesting folks we can find, talking about the most pressing cybersecurity issues and challenges facing the enterprise today. Myself and my co-hosts have each been in the industry for decades, long enough to see the patterns in the industry and explore where trends are going. In addition to enterprise challenges, we also follow the vendor space, the most interesting security startups emerging, technology and product trends, all the most interesting funding and acquisition announcements. Finally, we love to discuss the latest trends in tech and how they'll impact cybersecurity. If you're wondering how the latest in AI, quantum computing, cloud, and DevOps is going to impact security a few years down the road, you should follow the Enterprise Security Weekly podcast.
Welcome back, everyone, to Paul's Security Weekly, or Smoking Meat with Security Weekly. On my website, securitypodcaster.com, you will not find articles about smoking meat. You will find links to all of my social media. That's right.
Speaking of which, if anybody still wants to help me with my WordPress stuff, let me know. Because I got no time right now. Too many irons in the fire. And I've got a WordPress site that mostly works.
I'll tell you what, though. Casey Ellis nailed social media this week.
Yes. Where's Jeff Mann for this one?
Dude, there's a couple stories where I'm like, we need Jeff Mann. There's another story that talks about defining what a 0 day is, a 1 day, a half day. I think there's even a 0.75 day in there. I mean, just spells it all. Yep, spells it out. We'll get to that. I'm talking about Casey's tweet or X, or if it's called X, what is it? Still a tweet, or is it an X?
Is it X-rated?
It's an X post.
X
or
post.
A cross post.
Cross post? Wouldn't that be a anyway?
Who the?
Why do I feel we're getting into BDSM when we talk about social media now? I'm sorry. It's weird.
It's a tweet. So he said this came up in some kind of meeting he had or something like that. He said, threat actor equals someone who wants to punch you in the face. A threat is the punch being thrown. A vulnerability is your inability to defend against the punch. And a risk is the likelihood of getting punched in the face.
Okay.
So you can extend this analogy as many people did. He says acceptable risk is your willingness to be punched in the face.
Yep.
And the reply, I mean, the hits just keep
Threat
coming.
intelligence, the collection of photos of people who aren't allowed into the pub because of the time they punched someone in the face.
My contribution was a 0 day is the invisible man punching you in the face. That was my contribution.
I like the compliance. It's how you think this all works until you've been punched in the face.
It is a beautiful analogy that is doing really well on extending it.
Is exploit in here somewhere?
The attack surface is the size and shape of your face. I think there's exploit. If you read the threat, exploit is the fist.
Yep. Risk posture, whether you know that talking shit in the pub is likely to get you punched in the face or not.
Right. CISO is the person actually getting punched in the face. Oh, the person actually getting punched after the punch. Yikes. Yeah. Patch Tuesday is your weekly gym visit. You can just keep extending this analogy, please. I thought it was
Cyber and risk insurance. Your mates at the pub betting on if you can talk that kind of shit and not get punched in the face. Oh my God.
This is the greatest cybersecurity analogy ever. I'm calling it right now.
This is
the greatest one ever.
Gold. Asymmetric threat. Studying this entire thread, then getting kicked in the crotch.
It's actually good.
Oh my God.
It's just, you should go read that thread, by the way. It's gold all around. DEF CON is this Twitter thread, but in real life.
So getting punched in the face and kicked in the crotch?
Right.
Oh, my God.
And assaulted with BO.
Oh,
boy.
That's great.
Yeah, it's a very good way to kick it off.
Yeah.
Now let's get this out of the way. Talk about Bluetooth Low Energy.
I was going to say, because there's only another one story that makes any difference this weekend. That's the one where I'm famous.
That's the one where they made Larry famous. There is. There's actually 3 stories I have on Bluetooth that I want to get out of the way.
Yep.
Now that I want to get out of the way, but I want to talk about them because they relate, and if I don't do it now, I'll forget later, and it won't be as good. So the iOS 17.1.1, did it fix the Flipper Zero attack? So here's how I understand it. That there was a previous attack that could crash iOS.
Right.
But the previous attack was a very specific broadcast message on BLE that caused certain iOSs to crash, is the way I read it.
Yeah, and I'm not sure whether it was a specific message or it was the volume of messages.
Well, so this new one is volume of messages on 17.1.1 causes your phone to freeze and then reboot. Ask me how I know this. To use Larry's line, is because I was playing around with this attack on one of my new fancy little devices, like this one I'm holding up right here. That was on the charger. This is from
card computer.
Card computers from the M5 stack.
Yep,
M5 stack. It's basically an SP32 that can execute this attack.
Yep.
So, where was I going with that? Oh, I was messing with it, and my son's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm hacking stuff like I normally do." He's like, "Well, I think it worked because my phone just froze and it's rebooting now."
Nice.
I'm like, sweet. I'm like, what is that? And I was like, how did it? It's called the sour apple attack. And the sour apple attack, from what I understand, is what you described, Larry, is like a flooding of BLE messages.
Yep.
But it only works in 17.1.1 or later. I know I haven't tested all of them. We tested before the show.
Yep.
You're not 17.1.1.
Correct.
And did not. Well, I didn't test the. No, we did test those. Yeah, we did. We tested the sour. You want to run it now?
Do it again.
Do it again. He says. All right, go down to my menu, sour apple crash, and execute. Advertising. The other thing that 17.1.1 changed, according to this author, was the regular spamming attacks, the spoofing of those one-way broadcast messages slows down on iOS devices. So Apple's kind of getting in tune with it. I'm not sure if they're going to fix this or not.
My phone's not any slower.
It's always as slow.
No, it's actually good. No, it's not crashed, and I've actually stopped receiving pop-ups on those messages. So
interesting. So that's the latest on the attack. So now, if you update your devices, if you got it on your Flipper, I got it on my Flipper too. Get the updated attacks. I'm running Rogue Master on here. I just updated that one. The other thing was, our good friend KF pointed out to us, was that there's drama to be had about this BLE thing.
Drama.
So the way I understand the drama is, someone was credited with like discovering this Bluetooth spam attack and took credit for a bunch of other people's work. One of those people was Larry Pesce. I did not know that they used your research into Apple AirTags as a point of research to help develop this attack.
Me either.
You must have described, so it was news to you too.
Yep.
You must have described how.
Oh my God, Larry's a celebrity. Oh my God.
See what I'm saying? See what I'm saying? Can you,
Larry, congratulations on being a celebrity. You are awesome. Your wireless stuff is awesome, and you should be proud of yourself, sir.
Sure.
I was reading it. I'm like, wait, I know that guy.
Wait, I know that guy. It says Hacks of the Matrix, a.k.a. Larry Pesce. Well, I didn't even need to know that because I already knew.
That's great.
Oh, gosh.
So there's a few different key people, Larry is being one of them, as well as a couple other folks whose research kind of led to the culmination of, I don't remember.
According to this person.
According to this person, right? And I don't pretend to know who I probably should call everyone up, but I linked to it in my story number 26. You can link to the post. Now, when you load this page, just be very mindful of the fact that there's going to be blue dots floating around in the background of the page.
Yep.
Which is highly annoying. But you can click the little settings.
I mean,
link,
it might have been okay. It might be okay
on.
if you're a little high,
or it might not be okay.
Yep.
So, yeah. I read the article, but like I didn't pay attention to all of the actors. So we got Furious Mac with packet structure and nearby info messages. We've got some other researchers on proximity pairing messages, and a couple other.
Yep. Ecto-1's Apple Juice.
We got Hacks of the Matrix in there. Then we got SoundQ posts custom ADV code for Flipper. ADV is the advertisement message in BLE, right?
Yep.
And edits the gap.c file, which is the
generic access profile
for the Bluetooth on the Flipper.
Yep.
Is what that file is referencing. So it kind of goes through the whole progression. And there was someone that basically, who's the guy that claimed TechRiptic showcases AirTag spoof on Flipper. So he takes to Twitter and YouTube and shows you how to do that. But he basically, what the article gets to is that guy based it on other people's research. And then Ecto-1A is the one that produced the Apple Juice repo.
Yep.
Which I started messing with. So I used Ecto-1A's code on a Raspberry Pi. Is what I did, and I was doing it on the broadcasting this attack on a Raspberry Pi. So use his repo. Just I wrote zero code to do this. I'm really just downloading other people's code and using the devices that I have to broadcast these messages. Yes,
skitty.
It's very skitty.
Oh, so here's where the butt hurt happens, I think. Okay, and this is one I didn't get. In summary, TechCryptic took Salmac's BLE proof of concept code, most likely used Hacks of the Matrix AirTag tools, grabbed Ecto-1A's packet data, released his subpar and misrepresented Franken code in a blog post with no credits, showed off my app's dynamic and spam flood DDoS behavior, which his code is not capable. That's showed off my app's dynamic and spam flood.
By my, you mean the author of this?
Meaning the author of the blog post. And then got labeled as the creator of all of this mess, not once trying to explain how the facts went, and tried to cover up his inexcusable behavior.
So, Larry, he took one thing that he developed, then added in stuff from other people, Franken-coded it together. I love that word. Yep. Franken-coded it all together and said, "This is all mine. This is all mine."
I did all the thing.
I don't think
I
don't even think he had any original code. I think it was all other people's code, Josh.
Yep.
From
Franken code. Yep.
Yeah.
Admittedly, my code is not terribly fantastic. I did some research into what it would take to create an Apple AirTag from a bunch of public resources and cobbled together an AirTag definition to use with Linux HCI stuff. The part that was missing was the key, which is supposed to rotate. But the key derivation implementation that I found, you could go and create your own in OpenHaystack. So I created one and used a static key from OpenHaystack.
Okay.
So
here's
yeah.
Larry, I want to point out that you're saying, but my code wasn't that great, so it's not a big deal. But it is a big deal. Attribution is polite, and it is correct.
Yeah.
Sure.
We stand on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah, hey,
you may not be a giant, Larry.
Yep. Hey, I put this together because I was inspired by. Oh, that's cool.
Right.
Yeah.
If he had said, like, I took all these people's code and I, like, made my own thing, gave them all credit. Like, I forked all their Git repos and I built my own based on that, we would have been like, dude, that's awesome.
Cool,
like,
thanks.
It's great. Like, what a great contribution.
That's Doug Burks with Security Onion.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a million different things, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's all of hip hop music, essentially.
And arguably, the only part that was really unique to me in any of my code was that key. And I can't find evidence of that key being used anywhere outside of my GitHub repo.
Interesting.
So, but it's also documented as part of my code was this was my unique key as generated by OpenHaystack. You kind of might want to use something else.
Also, but this segues into my story number 4, denial of pleasure, attacking unusual BLE targets with a flipper 0. I like how people always have to add the with a flipper 0. I get it. Yes, it is easier to do it. A lot of these things, some of these things with a flipper 0.
Because it's handheld. Someone can write a code for it. You download an app and it's done. You don't necessarily have to worry about going to a GitHub repo and compiling this thing. And it's a couple button presses.
It's convenient. But what they were able to, and this is really interesting. The author, I thought, did well. Larry, you would be the judge here. A BLE broadcast, a short introduction. And I read this, I'm like, well, that makes sense. And they described basically how Bluetooth Low Energy advertisement packets work.
Yep. And
then they said, well, we're going to apply this knowledge to an app called Love Spouse, which, as far as I can tell, is like a generic app that you give it the device ID of your sex toy. And
yay, teledildonics.
If your sex toy has Bluetooth Low Energy, it's able to construct packets to control said sex toy.
Yep.
And is that because the chipset inside of all these sex toys are essentially the same? Like, is this a supply chain thing? Like,
it is a supply chain thing, but it's likely not the chipset. It's the third-party code.
Mm-hmm.
So the third-party code, like
it's the firmware.
It's white box firmware, effectively, for all.
Oh, I see. It could be a different chipset, but basically the code shares in common the way the protocol handling works. Yep.
So there's
to receive the messages, the way they receive the messages is all the same.
Yep. There's likely a company out there that makes a Bluetooth Low Energy module that can control a vibrating motor, and they sell it to sex toys companies. To implement in their
because it's like
thing.
Power off, power on is one, and then like different pulse modes and strength. Like, but they're all standard messages.
Ask you how you know this?
Because I read the article.
So and there's probably 30 or 40 different sex toy companies that buy these modules and implement them in their stuff, and they've got to have firmware on these. So the company that sells the modules has this firmware. And it's identical across these 30 different companies for all of their modules. And maybe there's some slight customizations, like they add some custom pulses and those types of things. So
that was the astonishing part for me, that is actually a sex toy supply chain issue. I can't believe I used all those words together in the same sentence. That's...
sex toy supply chain.
It's a TV be gone for sex toys.
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
It's a TV be gone for sex toys, and the fact that exists is simultaneously hilarious, slightly terrifying, and makes me wonder if you could do the opposite, which is instead of turn off, just turn on and stay at highest volume forever.
Oh yes, you can do that.
The interesting choice of words: turn on.
Yes.
Yes.
You can turn it off or on, or there's a video, Josh.
Yep. And look at.
But he said he used an NRF 52840.
Yep.
That's from Nordic Semiconductor.
It is.
And do you have to order those by like the hundreds if you're ordering directly from them or something?
Nope, they're cheap too.
They're like $10, right?
Something like that. Yep. Yeah, pretty standard Bluetooth Low Energy development platform. Super easy to get a hold of.
And Wireshark. So Wireshark will just recognize that, and Wireshark has a protocol decode for BLE, and you're off to the races?
Yeah, am I reading the...
That's what he said.
Right article?
He said, this is my article number 4.
Yeah, I think I looked at... That's the one I looked at. Yep, that's the one I'm looking at. It's
okay.
From the WHID Ninja.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, I'm missing the Wireshark stuff. I know there was some protocol analysis... with a logic analyzer.
I see. He decompiled the app and used Frida to intercept the functions that sends the packets.
Yep.
Frida's like the mobile app kind of man-in-the-middle tool.
Yep.
And then he said he used the NRF 52840 plus Wireshark to sniff the generated traffic, but he's like, I'll skip over that because actually the better way was to use an app on iOS or Android called NRF Connect.
Yep. NRF Connect is awesome.
Gotcha.
Can I just point out that the music for the video is hilarious?
I didn't get any sound when I played the video.
It's the 45-second video in the article. Go play it again. Please, go play it right now.
How did I? Oh, there's my sound. I must have been muted.
Yeah.
Oh,
all right.
Now Sam's awake. That's good because we're almost ready to talk crypto.
Oh man. So now I gotta. Did he say which?
So sorry.
Did he say which toys they were?
No, that's what I was trying to figure out. I'm like, so I was looking for like a list of supported toys because I was like, is this all toys? Some toys? A few toys? A lot? Like some? Not? But I don't know. So he uses the NRF Connect. Basically, long story short, figures out how to construct these packets and writes a Flipper app to send said packets, and then is able to control stuff. Then he has a hardware analysis one. He's using a Nando board, some Pizza Bytes, Impulse View software, and does it that way. But what's he doing? Sniffing off the bus?
Off the bus, yeah.
Okay. Of the toy itself, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I see. So he deconstructed a toy and then is a hardware when it's going across the bus sniffing the messages. I gotcha. Okay.
Yep.
Well done. They have a class. This person has a class in Certified Hardware Hacker.
It's pretty cool stuff. Yeah, I've used some of their tools, such as all the WHID Ninja boards, and like the one he's got there is the Nando board. I don't have that one. That's the newest one.
I gotcha.
But he's got a bunch of other stuff that's basically a breakout board for some of these like modules, like the FT23 2RL or something of the like, to do all sorts of fun hardware hacking stuff.
Yeah. Like that supports SPY and the F. What is the F? I think one of those is on the Hacking Coaster. The Eclipsium Hacking Coaster has a. Yeah, they're doing some pretty cool hardware stuff over there at the Ninja thing.
Want to know what version?
FTDI Breakout FT2232.
Yep.
Yeah. Read SPY Flash, JTAG, and more. Yeah, so it's cool stuff. So I guess the moral of the story, the conclusion is your sex toys are not safe. I
think we've determined that.
We've determined that.
The Internet
already.
of Dongs.
Yes. So anyway, I thought that was really interesting because just from a academic standpoint, he shows you the code, he shows you all the tools, and gives you an introduction to BLE broadcast. So definitely worth a read. Also for entertainment value as well. Okay, now take a break from the hardware stuff. Sam, I wanted to go to a couple of your stories.
Hardware.
We got a couple of things to hardware, huh? A couple of things to talk about. Did you read the SSH one?
Yeah. Because that one's kind of cute, although in fact there's no actual risk.
Except if you're running Zixil or Cisco or.
Yeah, but even then it's like 1 in a million.
Oh, I see. Why? I didn't understand the math. I'm going to be honest with you. What I gleaned from it is that there is a cryptographic attack that, based on the signature, allows you to derive the private key, but only in a 1 in a million chance. OpenSSH is not vulnerable, but some implementations are. Did I get that right?
Yeah, and it's actually incredibly simple. All you have to do when you do a verified signature, it multiplies by something based on n, p times q, and if it drops a bit during that calculation, it multiplies something else like p times q minus 1. Mm-hmm. And now you have two numbers that both have this one factor in common, and there's a known algorithm since Euler if you have two numbers to find their common factor no matter how long they are.
Oh, I see. So one number to find the common factor is really hard, which is why we have encryption, right?
But if you have two numbers to find the greatest common divisor, you just have to subtract them and subtract them again and again and again until they get small. It just takes a small number of subtractions to find the common factor, and that's either P or Q, so now you're in.
Oh. That's awesome.
But the problem is cosmic rays and stuff only cause that error like one chance in a million. Now, you can simulate it by just lowering the power supply or causing a hardware fault of some kind, but properly running equipment doesn't have that flaw unless a cosmic ray hits it.
I see. So there has to be a flaw when it does the signature validation in order for it to generate two numbers rather than one.
Yeah, and this has been going on for a long time. There was an attack 20 years ago where they lowered the power supply, and they found that if you do 100 encryptions with errors, you can deduce the private key from that.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's really interesting. Yeah, the paper is gets really right. It doesn't waste time. It gets right into equations and math. I was like, oh boy.
Yeah, people always make things hard.
Yeah. Well, I think we did a good job of distilling it down. But nothing to really write home about on this one.
No, the chance is extremely small that it would affect you.
But it's only with RSA keys, and largely
right.
I've moved most of my keys off of RSA.
And it's even only old versions of RSA. The later versions have another layer of encryption on the handshake that protects against this.
I don't even remember I generated new keys, and it was with ECDSA. Am I making that up?
I usually use OpenSSL, but
no, the
OpenSSH.
ECDSA is one of the
elliptic curves.
Yeah, elliptic curves is how I generate my new keys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in the next 5 years, we're all going to have to quit using all that stuff and use quantum safe stuff anyway.
This is true. Something to look forward to,
Yeah. I wanted to write hands-on projects with the quantum safe stuff, but I haven't got around to it yet. Machine learning got in the way.
What were some of the other? The new CPU attacks was the other thing, Sam, that you had in there as well. I admit I did not spend much time reading through these. The AMD one had to do with virtualization and hypervisors, correct?
Yeah, let's see. Is that Reptar? No. Which one is that?
That's
which article? Keylead?
What is it called? Cachewarp. We have Cachewarp. Cachewarp is a new software fault attack based on AMD Sev-ES. It allows attackers to hijack control flow, break into encrypted VMs, and perform privilege escalation inside the VM. And Sev is the secure encrypted virtualization from AMD, right? I didn't have time to read this. It just broke this week, and
I don't know any more than that about it either.
But the Intel one is a Tavis Ormandy creation.
Yeah.
We all know we're in for a treat when Tavis makes a post and has a discovery. But
That's the one about the machine language, right? The assembly language one?
Yes, correct.
That one is really fun. And even Tavis Ormandy doesn't know exactly why. He had to deduce it because apparently Intel microcode that runs on the chip is still a proprietary secret.
Yes,
so you just have to
correct.
guess what's wrong. Well, that's rude.
Unless it's on an Intel Atom processor where the PET security guys did red pill is what they called it. And they managed to find a debug mode on Atom processors that leaked some of the microcode stuff. Barring that,
but also,
microcode is a very closely guarded secret. There's a key in a vault with ridiculous security. You think about Intel, Microsoft, Google, Apple. They have keys they have to protect that could lead, if they leaked, could lead to the destruction of humanity, essentially, or something pretty close. So they're
supposed
protected.
to be in hardware, erasable storage modules. You don't have to protect the microcode to prevent that from leaking out.
I'm just protecting the keys that that protect the microcode. Keys to protect the microcode. Yeah, encrypt the
the key, the key signing keys and the promotion keys and all the different aspects of managing and administering that microcode, as well as the administration of the microcode. In other words, hey, let's change this constant.
But it sounds,
no, you don't need to turn on thermal shutdown until 500 degrees Celsius.
But it sounds like Reptar is not earth-shattering kind of thing.
All these crypto flaws this week are really not important in practice. Like reptar is a flaw, but they couldn't quite, even Travis Ormonde couldn't figure out how to make a privilege escalation out of it. It just causes some random errors in your code by mishandling multiple prefixes on assembly language code.
The one you gotta pay attention to is ZenBleed. Of all of the processor microarchitectural vulnerabilities, my vote is you're gonna pay attention to them. It's ZenBleed. You gotta patch that shit.
Yeah. There's also one that affected wallets here, Randstorm. But again,
oh yeah, this is from the what's his name from Unciphered?
Eric Michaud.
Yeah.
It's just another failure of random number generators, which, by the way, the thing scary about this is how it happened. They wrote code that was okay, but it used a browser, and browsers changed their JavaScript libraries over time. So modern browsers no longer supported the random call, and apparently, I didn't know this, although JavaScript is horrible, when the function vanishes, it just silently fails without telling you, without popping up an error message, so the code continues to run, but it's no longer returning a random number.
Wow. Was that the whole thing that they uncovered in that? I didn't read that one either.
There was a whole series of similar things like that. There were two different functions they used to get randomness, and both of them failed as browsers changed without popping up any error message. They fail silently. So that's the thing that struck me as something to worry about.
Yeah. Because where else does that bug lie then?
Yes.
So instead of returning a random number, they just return a static value of like 0?
Something like that. So the end result, the random numbers only have like 40 bits of randomness, so you can just brute force them. And cryptocurrency wallets created before like 2015 or 2014, some of them have these unsafe keys. There was a similar problem about 20 years ago with the HTTPS. There was a Debian, the whole Debian family of Linux systems had a random number seeding line, which was commented out. No one noticed for about a year. So all the cryptographic keys created in that year were not really random. And those keys would continue to be used for many years afterwards, and there was no way to tell, even on a Windows system, if the key you're using was actually created on a Debian system. So,
oh, that's interesting.
This is why, Bruce Schneier said years ago that if you wanted to have a secret backdoor in cryptography, the best thing to do is poison the random number generator, which is what the NSA was accused of doing, because there's no way to tell it's happened, and it's devastatingly powerful.
Well, we should be using, what was the...
hardware random number.
No, nuclear decay.
Yeah, nuclear decay, or actually they usually amplify Johnson noise, which should be as good, but radioactive decay is fine too.
So my story number 18, using nuclear decay as a random number generator on an MCU. So microcontroller-based system that uses, the new version, uses a commercial handheld Geiger counter, a GMC-320 Plus, and its audio output as generic input for the microcontroller. The pulsed audio signal is amplified with op-amp that connects to the GPIO pin on a Raspberry Pi RP2040 base Pico W, and creates random numbers in such a way that like a continuous queue of randomly picked numbers based on the Geiger counter's nuclear fallout readings.
Well, Intel processors have a hardware random number generator, and they had them in there for years, RD-RAND.
And that's based on environmental things inside the PC, right?
I think they all just work by amplifying Johnson noise. They just measure a point of current and magnify the noise.
Oh,
so
okay.
It's based on the random motion of atoms in the semiconductor.
For a split second, I forgot what Johnson noise was and thought you were being obscene.
Yeah,
I thought you were too. I'm like, why is it listening to my Johnson?
Wow. So I was sitting here with Paul and thinking the same thing. Like, Johnson makes noise.
Yeah, it's totally right.
This is what you get from listening to Paul's jokes.
This is true.
So
remember,
please explain.
If you squeak during sex, you're going too fast. Okay.
There's always time for lube. So please explain Johnson noise.
Yeah, what is Johnson noise?
It's just the random motion of atoms. This is why if you run current, put a voltage through a resistor, the current fluctuates randomly because the atoms move and the electrons collide with the atoms, just sort of like, a ball falling through one of those bouncy ball playing
machine.
You don't want to run wires in direct current through your Johnson, no.
People are into that.
Maybe you do. I'm not going to judge.
Don't judge. Yeah.
We don't kink shame on this show. Okay?
Rule 43, man. 43.
Anyway, there's a lot of hardware random numbers generators, but the problem is Intel brought this one out about 10 years ago, right after the NSA had totally been caught trying to poison cryptography, and everybody got paranoid and said they won't use it because they're afraid maybe it's poisoned. And how would you ever know?
Right.
I remember that, the elliptic curve cryptography where the NSA was supposed to have a backdoor.
And it was Microsoft that found it.
Yeah. God, that was
that was a while ago. Yeah.
Because didn't the NSA ask Microsoft to use it?
They paid $1 million to RSA to make it their default, even though it ran like 100 or 1,000 times slower. Okay. It was pretty scandalous.
Yep, I remember covering this not that long ago.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, this is the problem. We talk about this, you can say people are paranoid when they think the government is like secretly subverting crypto, but the problem is they've absolutely been caught red-handed doing it half a dozen times.
Just because you're not paranoid doesn't mean they're not out to get you.
That's right.
Yep. Sam, there was another one of your stories that you kind of alluded to a little bit when you were looking at something, but AI got in the way. One that I wanted to hear about from you was how to build your own custom chat GPT with OpenAI's GPT builder.
I looked that up just today because I need to do it for one of my consulting clients, and everybody does, and I read about it. This is the new OpenAI feature that they just announced a few days ago. And so they've made it incredibly easy. In fact, I listened to Scott Galloway, and he got his team, and they spent like 3 months designing an AI version of him, and now they could do it in like half an hour. So it's you got to have a $20 a month professional version of OpenAI, and then you just go through a wizard, and you can either describe what you want it to do, like this guy said, just make funny jokes about otters, and it will just figure that out and do it. Or you can just upload a pile of data, and it will use that data as the basis of its work, which is the main thing everybody wants.
This is what I want to do.
Yeah.
I want to take every description from every podcast we've ever done, and then I want to take the transcript from a new episode, and I'm going to go based on the data set that I gave you with all the descriptions from every podcast we've ever done, take this transcript, put the two together, and generate me a description.
Yes, it could totally do that.
That can absolutely be done.
I mean, it could do it today. It can look at without the specific training. There's ChatGPT for YouTube, takes a transcript and goes, here's a summary, and boy, is it pretty. I mean, it writes a better description oftentimes than I can, because I'm trying to use my brain to remember, like, what did we talk about? Okay, I think we talked about this, and that. Like, I write crappy descriptions for our content, but AI can write awesome descriptions for our content, and I don't think anyone cares that it's AI generated. They're not looking for our voice in that. I mean, maybe you care if it's
it will make up random lies and throw them in, but I suppose you might do that too.
That's true. This is true. I mean, in that sense, it's probably very accurate.
GChat, Google Chat now does the same thing. There's an AI. If you walk away from your phone for a little while and come back, and you have an active conversation, there will be a summary where you stop and the new messages start that you haven't read yet. There'll be a summary of the new messages, so you can read that and just skip all the way down to the bottom.
Yeah.
So it's already happening everywhere.
Yeah, but in tests, the Google AI has 10 times more hallucinations than ChatGPT.
So
they're just feeding it good weed. Come on, stop bitching it. Take some of the weed for yourself.
Yeah. So one of my friends, Mr. James Lee Vidal, co-author of 617, tried to train GPT on the 802.11 2020 standard. And so we could ask it questions. And got it working, but it stopped producing anything useful, and a couple of times it timed out on a bunch of queries. And general knowledge, it was good, but when he asked it about a specific protocol ID version in a frame control field, it still called out 0 as the only option, when clearly we know that 0 was not the only option.
Right.
Yep. Then there's another interesting flaw, which I'd like to start experimenting. If you have security controls in your AI, like don't tell people how to poison people, don't say racist things, when you add more training data, it erases those security controls. This is called a forgetting problem. When it learns new things, it forgets the old stuff. And they haven't found a way to fix that.
It doesn't forget the old stuff. It forgets the constraints on the old stuff.
Right. But the constraints are previously learned stuff.
Right. It's all training data, Josh. It's not like rules. It's not like Yara rules.
If you read the stories, this is what Sherlock Holmes believed. At one point, Watson told him that the Earth went around the sun, and he got really mad, saying, "I don't need to know that, and knowing that means I'm going to forget something important about a criminal." And ChatGPT really works that way.
Interesting. Okay.
Sweet. I don't think I have anything else AI related. Well, sort of. So I wasn't able to read this article, which is frustrating because it came from Bloomberg, and I refused to create an account, and I was lazy, and I didn't have the thing that hacks around articles that are behind paywalls, kind of thing. But essentially, there's platforms like Resi and Talk are searching for ways around algorithms that snatch up primetime reservations and then resell them to desperate diners. I mean, this is essentially
what story of this was yours?
My story number 16.
This is ShmooCon, essentially.
It is. It's bot detection at its finest, right? And like I feel like we're just in a losing war with bots.
Oh, this is freaking Ticketmaster and StubHub, for Christ's sake.
Correct.
This is they're scalping restaurant reservations. That's ridiculous.
Oh,
what are they going to scalp next?
I don't know, but like
Walmart
it costs
sneakers.
It costs enough to go out to eat. Never mind, I got to pay for my reservation now.
No kidding, right?
Like, you know what? I can go get home. It's fine.
Now,
Larry, we're just coming up to your house for food from now on, just to be clear.
That's it.
All right, you're gonna start. If that's the case, the price of ramen just went up. Right?
That's right. And you have to pay for a reservation now.
And you got to pay for a reservation. Yeah. Good. Arguably, I have, quote, paid for reservations, but only at Disney for restaurants that I couldn't get into at a time that I wanted to.
You can pay?
You can use a third-party app to basically scrape the API or scrape Disney's website to find out when
someone else cancels
and something becomes available, or they release new seating.
Right.
And it sends you a text message. You click on the link and you can go get your reservation.
But Larry, you just pointed out to me the obvious solution. Everybody should just accept bribes to let you bust into the reservation system and just charge for this, and that would put the bots out of business. The restaurant should just get the money.
Yeah. Like Resi should charge a fee to get in the line for their premium service.
Restaurant should just say, you can have if you don't pay for your reservation, you may be bumped like an airplane by somebody who pays to bump you.
So this is my friend's "there's always a spot in the lot" story. Going to a sporting event and then driving up together, and my one friend's like, "There's always a spot in this lot." So what are you talking about? The lot's like right across from like the stadium. He's like, and we're like it's super early. Like, what are you talking about? He's like, always a spot. Pulls in the lot. The guy's like, the lot's full. The lot's never full. He has $50. He goes, no, lot's full. He has another $50. You can park right there up front, sir. He's like, see, I told you the lot's never full. Same thing with reservations. We're booked.
Yep.
This is
now,
what I thought.
It doesn't work that way in healthcare, okay? Because I don't want to say like only people with money get healthcare, right? I think sometimes many of us get frustrated with the healthcare system, but that's a different story.
Actually, in healthcare, if you get a concierge doctors, you can be bumped to the front of the line because your concierge doctor will call the local whatever endocrinologist or cardiac whatever and say, "Hey, I've got a patient right here. They need an appointment." Oh, well, for you, we'll get him in tomorrow.
Yeah.
Instead of 8 months from now, which is the first time you can get a cardiologist appointment right now.
Right.
Yep. Oh, what else we got?
I don't know. I want to stick on this for 1 second.
Okay.
What is the answer to Ticketmaster, StubHub, reservation hoarding bots? Larry using third-party apps for Disney restaurants.
I've got a real simple answer. They just need to have an actual human answer the phone and talk to you to make your reservation. There's a low-tech solution.
I mean, it's bot detection, but the bot detection industry is at in a cat and mouse game.
Game of whack-a-mole.
I want to say it gets harder at scale. Because also, I mean, you think about it's like the Shmoocon problem is a prime example, right? It's not that there's one or two people going, "Hey, I want a ticket," and I can take my time. I can go take my time and say, "Is that a bot or not?" The problem is there's thousands of people flooding in a very short period of time, and you got to make a decision really fast as to whether or not it's a bot.
Yeah,
I think that's
so
the
now
issue.
for the Shmoocon problem. I think is a little different in that I'd argue that every year they do something a little different with the system, so that you don't know what to expect on that first round. So then you have to take your first round data gathering to create your automation for round 2, and if round 2 fails, you need to troubleshoot for round 3.
Or we can go back to our previous example, and you can just buy Heidi something really nice.
Exactly.
It applies.
But arguably, something
actually,
like
Heidi may tell you to go jump in a lake, but
these
depends on how nice of a gift.
These reservation systems, the way to get a reservation is pretty static because it's the same code over and over and over and over and over and over again. As opposed to, you get 3 chances a year for 11 minutes.
11 minutes.
Well, there's one other AI story worth mentioning. My number 5, I was real impressed by this. They can now do protein folding in AI, and they can also do virus mutation in AI. So they were able to predict all the mutants that affected us of COVID from the original one. So they could have used that to make a universal vaccine right from the start. So that might really be good.
It said that we're done with the damn variants.
They can predict them in advance, and they could have made a vaccine to stop them.
Well, no, I mean we're still getting new variants out. So I was wondering if it says that we're done with that.
That's because the TVA has to control the timeline, Josh.
I said variants. I knew you were going to go there.
They should be able to make. But you're right. They should be able to make a vaccine starting where we are now to stop it.
But I'm waiting for that to kind of delve into the cure for the common cold.
Actually, they're talking about a universal flu vaccine.
Yeah.
And a universal cold vaccine. And yeah, absolutely.
I mean, because COVID, correct me if I'm wrong, COVID was pretty similar to the common cold strains.
Yes. And they made cancer vaccines now. It's bloody awesome.
Now we need to have them release that one for the norovirus, and we're good. That's the common cold, right? Yeah. No, noro is the stomach.
No, norovirus is the pukey stomach bug, where you're sitting on the toilet with a bucket coming out of both ends and really unhappy about it.
Dude, I'm first in line for that vaccine.
It's a great it's a great weight loss program.
It is a weight loss program. It's
also a really shitty weight loss program.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have 2 small children. Trust me, I'm aware.
Yep, been there, done that.
I want to talk about this 50 Shades of Vulnerabilities, uncovering flaws in open source vulnerability disclosures. Yeah. I think Josh was the one that was poo-pooing me when I said it's really hard to do a disclosure to an open source project because at some point someone has to put a commit into Git or a pull request and go, this is the fix. And you can't hide that, or you can hide that, but most people don't hide that in the proper ways. And I think, Josh, you said it wasn't a big deal. This entire research article, this research article and project shows you that it's a hugely big deal.
Is this very similar to what folks find around like the Microsoft Patch Tuesday? Is that there's a 0 day out there. We don't know what the 0 day is. Microsoft releases a set of patches. They reverse engineer the patches to figure out what was fixed so that they can recreate the ODA.
That's post-patch, so people have the patch. What I'm saying is before the patch comes out, you see the Git commit, the pull request, and go, oh, that's fixing a vulnerability, therefore. So also what they did was, the TLDR of this is they look at NVD and they look at the CVEs that are recently assigned. Then they go scour GitHub for references to those CVEs that are freshly assigned, and what they're finding is pull requests for vulnerabilities fixes that have not been fully pushed out. Because like you can do the pull request, but it hasn't made it through testing and all the way pushed out into a release yet. So you've got this time window where you go, you've been assigned to CVE, you know about the vulnerability, you did the initial pull request out there. Now the pull request is all, and attacker needs to go, oh, I can make an exploit for that. So they're calling it a half day. So I like their definition. So 0-day vulnerability that is unknown to the maintainer of the project. One day, a vulnerability that is known to the maintainer. Typically, the CVE announcement is publicly published. At this stage, there's typically an available patch. However, the release of this patch can sometimes be delayed by a day, or in some cases, not at all. So a half-day vulnerability is a vulnerability known to the maintainer. Information about the vulnerability is exposed to the public through platforms such as GitHub or NVD. A commit to fixing the vulnerability may have been created, but an official release is not available yet. A CVE may or may not be assigned. Then they've got a 0.75 day. I love this. I think this is great. Vulnerability is known to the maintainer. A patch is available, but a CVE or CPE is not available. Well, that's an interesting scenario. That's a 0.75
and therefore phone
day.
scanners. Yeah. Phone scanners can't find it. Yeah.
Right. Well, they could find it, but they won't be able to tie it back to a CVE.
Well, they usually only put CVEs in the phone scanners.
True. There's plugins to find generic stuff as well in a lot of phone scanners. But you're right, creating a new, on a regular cycle, creating new stuff is largely based on CVE. It's less frequently that they're like, hey, this cool plugin can probably find like vulnerabilities, but not really ones that have a CVE.
But, again, I feel like the real risk is small because if it was really important, they would rush and patch it, and this time window would be shorter.
I think they're. I think they're patching it as fast as they can, though, Sam. I don't think they don't want to delay it. It's just taking time to go through testing. The real answer here for me. Now, I love this research because basically they released a tool on GitHub that you can run. You can say, go look at recent CVEs, go scour GitHub, give me the list of projects that are and they did like a really interesting kind of search for keywords. So it's not just all open pull requests. It's pull requests that contain what they call trigger terms: CSRF, man in the middle, null byte takeover, smuggling, blah, blah, blah. So they get a whole list of terms. They're doing some other massaging of that data and ultimately created a tool that gives you a list. And they give you a little sample kind of output in the post. It's basically like a listing of around 20, like, hey, this CVE has a possible reference from this GitHub in this pull request. So you can go look at it. So they're basically taking most of the guesswork out to go, what has been identified, a pull request is created, but hasn't been patched. There are all your half-day vulnerabilities.
I'm sorry. Speaking of vulnerabilities, please check Slack at the link I just put in there. This is mind-blowing. A ransomware group just submitted an SEC complaint against a company for that company not disclosing the breach, which was performed by the ransomware group that submitted the complaint.
Oh, shit.
Cool. So that creates a compliance form of blackmail.
That's interesting.
I'm 100% certain they bought puts on that company, and then they didn't put it out. Hang on, I'll throw the link in Discord for everybody. Did that work? Yes, there it is. But there's two pictures in there. If you click the one on the right, the freaking ransomware group said they didn't disclose it under item 1.05 of their Form 8K within the stipulated 4 business days as mandated by the new SEC rules. Holy shit.
And how do we know that? Because we were the one that compromised them.
Yeah.
Damn. But Josh, that makes a great point. And it was probably because they put some puts on it and had stood to gain financially from the disclosure.
So now they don't even have to get the ransomware to they don't have to get the Bitcoin from the ransomware.
Yeah.
They bought $1 billion worth of puts or whatever. I don't know. I'm guessing. I'm just fucking around. But and they could make $1 billion legally.
Yeah. Well, not exactly legal.
No. The acquisition of the money is legal.
Trading or something. No, I mean, if I shoot the CEO and buy puts, it accomplishes the same thing, and it's still not.
Yeah,
legal.
they're still committing a crime in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but do you know what they did? Is they fucked up. They should have had a ransomware group do the ransomware and actually get it through and successful, and then they should have had another party actually put in the complaint. But the fact is, the same criminal group that put in the complaint is the one that did the ransomware. That's the only way they fucked up, honestly. If you have an uninterested third party who claimed that there was a ransomware event that they heard about, it's an anonymous tip.
Any interested third party could just scrape the ransomware notification sites and buy puts on any company as soon as it appears there, and that would probably be a sound investment strategy.
Oh, there's the tie back to the vulnerability thing. I see what you did there.
Ta-da!
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, this is terrifying.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't think it increases the risk of ransomware significantly to the company.
It increases the risk of what's the NotPetya? Like, it's not actually ransomware; it just encrypts your files.
I mean, dickheadware. I mean, ransomware, but without the ransom.
Without the decryptability. Yeah, exactly. So they don't care if they get a ransom. All they know is we got something through to fuck with you as a company, and you didn't disclose it. Or even if you did disclose it, I bought puts before I did that. I'm now profiting.
Sure.
That's fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Why didn't we think of this? We're in the wrong business.
Well, I'm going to go back to Paul's thing about the half days. What is the countermeasure for this? Do you want to make all commits secret or something?
I didn't get there because Josh went in a different direction.
I'm sorry.
So GitHub has a private reporting feature. This is what I was advocating for open source projects. I'm like, we need a way to manage the disclosure. I understand that open source is open, right? But we need a mechanism to manage these, especially for super critical software, right? Open source software. We need a way to manage it. And GitHub does have private reporting, which I believe if you're an open source project, they make available like free of charge. Like you can just use it as an open source project. I remember something about that. Yeah.
That seems like the obvious answer. Yeah.
And they mentioned a couple other things: proactive scanning of your open source commits, issues, and PRs. Conduct regular scans for trigger words. Runtime protection. Crucial role of runtime protection strategies and bolstering security, which is that's kind of a lame recommendation. I mean, this came from Aqua Security. That's probably, I think, might be part of their security stack, but. Which is fine. I mean, if they have that, that's really awesome. I am a fan of runtime protection, but I don't think it addresses the specific problem we're talking about. I think the right answer for me is GitHub's private reporting feature.
Did you already talk about my story number 1 with the Intel private key leaking? Because it really seemed like your kind of stuff.
No, I didn't see this one.
Yeah, the Intel boot guard is not effective because their key leaked.
No, it's not Intel's key. That's MSI's key that leaked. That's why I didn't put that in there. Yeah, they're trying to make a big hoopla about that. But so with boot guard and other similar things, what happens in the process is Intel hands a bunch of stuff off to an OEM like MSI or whatever. MSI creates their boot guard key. And that's what gets burned on and goes out on all the boards. So if you get that key, you can bypass boot guard on MSI gear. It's not Intel's key. Intel's keys have not leaked. I've spoken to people at Intel. I actually asked them on the Below Surface podcast. Someone from Intel clarified this. So I don't know why they keep this other company that keeps doing that. It's binarily. I mean, they keep saying that. Like I strongly disagree, and I've gone to like the source, and it's again. I think it's in relation to MSI's key. Now there is some interesting things with like the MSI leak specifically, because MSI leaked some of the private keys that was used in testing that ended up in the root of trust for like secure boot. And you can go look for those. In fact, I think our product actually finds those. But there's someone made a post, someone tagged me on Facebook, and they're like, I'm looking through like my platform keys, PKs in secure boot, and one of them says like, it's this test key and should never be used in production.
Right.
And
right.
I'm like, yes, because that shouldn't be there, because like the private key is now actually public as a part of the breach, right? Yeah. So I think there's some interesting things with that situation. But this is specific to OEMs, not Intel.
Oh, okay, good.
What else do we got? Larry said you didn't add stories.
What's that? No, I added them.
Okay. You did? Okay.
Well, let's put it this way. I got stories in. You might need to do a reload. Renee added them.
Okay.
They are on the SC Media, SC
Gotcha.
Magazine site. So let's see.
I got a fun supply chain one for you guys and Josh. So pfSense, right? Great firewall software.
Yeah.
Has add-on packages that you can add on to it.
Uh-huh.
They recently came out and said, we're deprecating Squid because they had like 40 vulnerabilities that were disclosed that they didn't fix, and it's too much of a risk. So you know what? We're no longer including Squid in our platform.
We talked about that like a month or two ago.
Did we?
Yeah, but
we talked about Squid and how the problems they were having.
Yeah. On November 10th, Netgate, who makes pfSense, said deprecation of Squid add-on package for pfSense software. And it caught my eye. I'm like, wait, are they doing that because Squid hasn't addressed or is unable to fix in a timely manner like about 40 vulnerabilities? And sure enough, that is why. Yeah, recent reports have identified a large number of unresolved security-related vulnerabilities in Squid. Because the security of our users is of utmost importance to us, we highly recommend that all users uninstall Squid, and it will be deprecated on their platform. It actually breeds confidence in pfSense. Like, good for them for protecting their supply chain. They're paying attention to it.
Yep.
And not just going, wow, I mean, it's Squid's problem. If the user wants to install it, then let them install it, right? They're like, yeah, no, you don't do that. Not allowed on our platform.
Speaking of supply chain 1, 2, Paul, where is it? You had...
Oh, this was awesome. My Star Wars referenced one. This is
number 13.
This is essentially, these are all examples in here of the thermal exhaust port in some way, shape, form, or fashion. So Salsa has released this document that I linked to that is called Supply Chain Threats. So it says this page is an introduction to possible attacks throughout the supply chain and how Salsa can help. And I mean, they do a really good job of going putting a diagram together, and then in each stage of the diagram in the supply chain, they say the integrity threat is submit unauthorized change to the source repo. Known example, Sushi Swap, say that 10 times fast. Sushi Swap, contractor with repository access, published a malicious commit redirecting cryptocurrency to themselves. And they give an example with a link. And they go down the list. You compromise the source repo. That happened to PHP. Attacker compromised PHP's self-hosted Git server and injected 2 malicious commits. Again, that's the thermal exhaust port. And they just go down the line. It's a great read. Everyone should read. I thought they did a great job with it.
So the one I was thinking of was your story number 2, 21 vulnerabilities discovered in crucial IT, OT connective routers.
That's a good one too.
Yeah. Which
I want the details. This is a Black Hat Europe presentation.
Hey, Paul, shut down your little...
Oh, I turned the sound on because Josh told me to.
No, the Bluetooth low energy thing.
Oh. Is that still running?
Asked. Yeah, it is.
They haven't learned to disable Bluetooth during the show, huh?
No, guess not.
So we'll stop the show so I can.
So you can not hack and not annoy the production staff because they will put overlays of dongs over your face.
Wouldn't be the first time, nor the last. That's great. Go for it.
Go for it. You heard him. He said, "Go for it."
Yeah. So this was is going to be a Black Hat Europe presentation. Black Hat Europe hasn't happened yet, so they did the disclosure to like a journalist that they write about, and we don't get a lot of details, which is even further frustrating because we don't know who the vendors are that have vulnerabilities that were discovered. However, they said some interesting. So I went to the Black Hat Europe description of the talk. I believe it's Forescout. Two researchers from Forescout are giving this presentation. They say we will demonstrate how one of these vulnerabilities allows for full control of the device. We'll also discuss how these open source components were missed by some commercial SBOM tools that rely on firmware analysis. We found more than 80,000 of these devices exposed to the internet and potentially affected by past and present vulnerabilities. To better understand the threat landscape, they deployed high interaction honeypots to understand them, and they'll talk about that research as well. I thought the interesting part was they have open source components in these systems that they're finding, because I just found that in a particular firmware this week as well.
Yeah.
And it's not uncommon to find this. And their talk title is Old Code Dies Hard, Finding New Vulnerabilities in Old Third-Party Software Components and the Importance of Having SBOM for IoT, OT devices.
Yeah. So when you said this, and I was kind of like, oh, they missed it in the SBOMs. I bet they're not doing binary analysis of firmware. And sure enough, they said that, yeah, it's commercial tools doing firmware analysis. And I'm like,
really?
Well, what tools did they use? Because there is not a single open source free tool that does binary SCA.
Binary
source code analysis. It's taking
the binary part.
Taking the binaries and the firmware apart to determine what was used to create those binaries.
Or what components are inside of them?
Yep, or what components were linked at compile time for those.
I'm pretty sure Emba's starting to do...
that would be good.
Emba can tell you the version of the binary. That's not taking it apart.
Right. Nope.
Does it do it might do a strings on it and look for...
or it could look if it could take wget and it could tell you which version of wget it is. But it doesn't tell you when it was compiled which libraries were used in wget.
It might I have to go back to my report. Yeah. It gives the reason I'm hesitating there is because it does Emba is search for Emba firmware. I'm working on a blog post on it because I've been using it quite a bit lately. And when given firmware, it will run all of the things, like open source things against it. And it'll like run semgrep if it finds source code, but that's if it finds source code, right? But it'll also look into some of the binaries and tell you, I believe it says which libraries are compiled. I could be getting that wrong. They told me there was a vulnerable glibc on the system, but that's not telling me what other binaries libraries were linked to it. Because
that glibc could live on the system independently of
correct.
wget.
What? Yeah. I gotcha.
So yeah.
There is different levels of it. Yeah, I'm curious what they.
Yeah, and the only reason why I'm saying this, and I'm curious, and that I found no open source tools that will do binary SCA, it's because I work for a company that does binary SCA.
Right.
And I want to include those type of methods in some firmware analysis,
right?
And SBOM generation and supply chain stuff for an IoT class that I might happen to read. Right?
Yeah.
And I want to have students do a lab and look at some firmware and generate an SBOM. Nope. Dependency track is it.
Is it?
So,
right. Okay.
I mean, OWASP has a whole list of stuff there's some open source SCA stuff, but I'm not sure any of it's binary. That's a valid point.
None of it is binary. If you want binary SCA, you're using a commercial tool. Yep.
Look at Josh's gears turning. He's determined. He's determined now.
Well, find something. Screw you.
He's determined to find something.
Let me know when you do.
So, I mean, we'll see what happens when this talk is released. I thought, the other interesting thing is, I don't know if my article is published or not. But I wrote an article that is ready to be published very soon, but has not yet. But I'll give you a sneak peek. Did we talk about Zixel? Did you guys have the Zixel, the Denmark thing?
You mentioned it, yeah.
So the Danish critical infrastructure suffered an attack. They pointed it back to the Zixel remote code exploit. I forget which CVE it is exactly. When I looked at the attack, it was Lee Neely that had the story, who couldn't join us this evening. The attack against Danish critical infrastructure. And so there was known vulnerabilities in Zixel firewalls. And when I looked at one of those CVEs, it was from like disclosed April, patched in May kind of thing, something like that. In the Zixel firewall, Rapid7 wrote up a huge write-up about it and published a Metasploit module for the exploit. We were talking about this in the Below Surface podcast earlier today. The am I still running the Bluetooth spam attack?
I don't know, but mine just showed up.
I thought I was running.
You're a dick.
I'm just sending out packets, man. So what happens is the Rapid7 did the analysis. I read through the analysis, and essentially there's a Metasploit module, which is dangerous. This comes down to a single packet remote code execution vulnerability, unauthenticated, that gives you root privileges on the device. It has to do with a vulnerability in the IPsec implementation. It's an IKE v2 packet. And I was like, hold on, timeout. I know IPsec. I know enough to go, IPsec is really friggin' complicated. And if I was a firewall vendor and in charge of software development, I go, yeah, I don't want to write an implementation ourselves. Like, we're going to license this or buy it from somewhere else, from someone else who painfully has read through all the RFCs that define IPsec and written an implementation, and then we're going to incorporate that into our product. And what my research said was that's exactly what happened. If I start Googling around for the name of the binary that was on Zixel systems, anyone can do this. Go to the Rapid7 report for the Zixel remote code execution vulnerability. Look at the binary. It's called SSH IPsec LM or something like that. I forget the name of the exact binary. You search for that binary name that Rapid7 found inside the firmware.
Yep.
And you Google search for that. You'll come across like a Russian forum posting, this other forum posting of people going, yeah, I was having trouble, and here's the information about my system. And it says QuickSec, IPsec, SSH, or IPsec PM, like version, blah, blah, blah. And it says Clavister firewalls, and it says SafeNet Incorporated. SafeNet was a company that made like cryptographic software. They got bought and sold a bunch of times until it ended up at Thales, who makes
HSMs. SafeNet made HSMs for a long time.
Yeah, so Thales does like cryptographic stuff, and I think they bought the company that made it. My theory is based on tangential, but evidence, but I mean not great evidence, right? I didn't like go through the journalistic of interviewing people and like really doing, but like from what I can tell, this binary comes from a supply chain, right? And they inherited this vulnerability. So heads up, it could be in other things that others firewall vendors. So Clavister is a Swedish firewall vendor. So I don't know if like they also licensed it or if they created it or if Zixel and Clavister are in some partnership. I again, like I only did enough research to kind of point to, I believe this is a supply chain vulnerability and a supply chain threat that could live in other places based on the evidence that I presented that this binary name basically matches other people's descriptions of running different firewalls. D-Link was one of the other firewalls that it was on. Sam, I know you want to jump in here. I can see you're getting excited. I love it.
Because this attacking these endpoint devices, I want to hear about Larry's story number 5.
Oh, which one is my story?
That's where the Chinese. Chinese are now attacking edge devices with 0 days to a large extent, where they say it's their number one way of attacking us.
So it was a Taiwanese company that disclosed this vulnerability to Zixil.
Yeah.
To back up your point, Sam.
Yeah. So do you have more to say about that, Larry?
I added this story last minute. Didn't get a super good chance to read through this one.
Well, I have a hard question, which is there any way to detect or defend yourself against these attacks on your edge devices, like your firewall and your routers? Because if this is going to be something people are commonly doing, we really need to have some kind of defense. And what would that be?
So, but it's a great question, Sam, because if you're running an IPsec VPN, you have to expose those ports to the internet.
Right.
So turning it off is not an option.
And how do you know that somebody's not taking over your exposed edge devices?
You can run a scan. You can run a scan against it. Okay,
but you can run a scan against it. That would tell you might be vulnerable. But how do you know that an active attack might be happening?
How do you know there's not a rootkit on it?
How do you know it's not a zero? How do you know it's not a 0 day? Right. Or my thing was, what if they're including this software and the vuln scanners aren't finding it over the network because it's a supply chain thing, and they're like, well, this vulnerability only affects Zixil firewalls. If I find another firewall, I'm not going to check for the Zixil remote code execution. Right. And I know.
Even though
I worked in VM, so like I know how some of these things.
Even though the third-party code that is affecting Zixil affects like 17 other manufacturers, and I think the way Sam was getting at this is like, how do you know that an ongoing attack may be happening against your edge device? And we've had this technology for years, and it's called intrusion prevention and intrusion detection, or any of that network monitoring stuff that we call it now.
I guess you could have integrity defenses on the device itself, where it scans the hash value of the system files to make sure they haven't been altered. Can you do that on a router or a firewall?
Yep.
Like Tripwire.
Yeah, I was going to say just like Tripwire. Like that was what I was thinking about. Like,
but we don't have anything like that, do we? It seems like this needs to become standard on all those devices.
I want to say there's something similar for Tripwire for some type of devices, like Cisco. I mean, there might be this company.
Maybe this company
called a Eclipsium.
It's part. It's part of what we do, right? So we take the known good firmware, take your firmware, and then we compare it. I give you the 30,000 foot view. We compare it.
But firmware running live on the device?
Yeah.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. Well,
so
it depends.
Okay, but there was a well there.
It depends.
And I don't wear them.
Strongly supporting UEFI in this context.
Sure.
And working towards there are some other platforms that we support in that capacity. But for things like UEFI as an example, we know if you're running like this version, what it should look like. We take a snapshot of your spy flash as an example, and then we compare it. So like we know what's running on your system, we know what should be running, we do a comparison. Then we can also take that snapshot and go, do the components that should never change unless you've upgraded your firmware, have they changed? Which means an attacker could have gotten in there and changed the firmware or put their own firmware on it. So that's largely 30,000 foot view, some of the things we do at Eclipsium. So that's one way to monitor your
another one
firewall.
would be network traffic inspection.
Yes.
Being able to determine where source and destination.
Logs suck on firewalls. I mean, you can run Yara rules against your logs.
But not just even on the firewall, above that.
But you can't.
Go ahead, Sam.
I don't think you can monitor the network traffic if you can't trust your end devices. They'll be lying to you.
Well, you don't do it on the device that you're trying to monitor. You do it on a separate device. You do it on
some other device, which might be the one infected. I mean, you've got a chicken and the egg problem here.
Right. I mean, we put a compiler inside your compiler, right?
Exactly.
So there comes a point where you have to figure out what you trust and what you don't trust, I would assume.
Well, you can trust the device that has the Eclipsium software in it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, there is like a thing where you can take apart the firmware and hash all the files and then take apart like the official firmware, right, and compare them. And we do similar thing. We were starting, down some of we actually do that for certain types of firmware. I'd like to see it greatly expanded based on this problem, right? Look at
if
all these
Chinese
different appliances. Doesn't matter what kind of appliance it is. If it's a black box thing, if I'm not controlling the operating system, I need to have some integrity and trustworthiness value of that operating system hasn't been tampered with.
Yeah, and if there's actually a large amount of Chinese attacks going against these devices, this is a real threat. We need to have a real countermeasure.
Agreed. Yeah, and logs.
That countermeasure's name, Sam Bound. Sam will be recruited to fight all Chinese attacks.
But I don't know how to do it. Paul's the one that knows how to do it.
Well, you've got AI, though, Sam.
That's right.
Oh, yeah, AI. That's right. It's the answer to everything. I forgot. How could I forget that?
I would run all my logs through AI and just tell me if there's anything wrong. There's no problem.
Well, you could create your own AI. You could create your own chat GPT or your own GPT, rather, and train it on the model of what good traffic looks like. But how do you know you had good traffic to begin with?
You put the known good images on the blockchain.
Oh, got it.
I'm going to hurt you.
Yeah.
I want to talk
I'm going to so fucking hurt you for saying that because you know that the blockchain will just get gummed up beyond all belief about 3 seconds later.
But
you suck.
But which blockchain? Well, you have to create our own new blockchain.
That's right.
Let's talk about a little lighter topic. My story number 5, a tale of 2 vulnerability disclosures. I just want to start with this is not a sales message. Your blob storage, I should have put, is open to the internet. This was the response to the response when this security researcher was doing a pen test and looking at blob storage, right? So S3 and other similar systems that may belong to the company he was testing. Well, in his testing and like searching, he found other open S3 buckets essentially that belonged to a different company that he wasn't testing. And he's like, I guess I should tell them, right? He disclosed it to one university who was able to name because their disclosure process was awesome. They had a security.txt. They responded. They said, thank you. They closed their vulnerability. They gave him recognition. He's like, that's all. That's all. Like, I don't need like even a t-shirt. Like, just, I found this, like, secure your shit. Like, that's good. Thank you for doing that. The other company was like ghosting him, responding back to his messages going, yeah, no, I don't want to buy your stuff. It's like, I'm not selling you anything. I'm telling you, like, your bucket is open up to the internet. Like, what the hell? And went through this whole thing. Like, contacted all these organizations. Like, I give this person a lot of credit for sticking with it, because I think many of us would have just been like, yeah, whatever. Like, if you're not willing to play ball, like, whatever, and it would have just made it public, right? Eventually, he contacted Troy Hunt. He was like, Troy, can you like help me with this? Because Troy helps people sometimes with disclosure kind of things. It's like, I'm just trying to be a good citizen. Maybe if you contact this company, they'll listen. And Troy got a positive response from the company, but in the end, they never closed down their open S3 or whatever equivalent bucket.
Yeah. Look at the other one, the university one.
Yeah.
We were talking about Casey Ellis before.
Yeah.
Point to them. They were using Bug Crowd.
Yes.
Because and so they responded quickly. They pointed him to Bug Crowd so he could get credit and potentially get paid. They closed it like he was like, this is beautiful. These people are lovely. I was able to. It was 5 minutes and he was done type of thing. Okay. That's the way it should be done. And by the way, just to be clear, Casey, among others, has a website, disclose.io, which helps you for no cost build your own security.txt file, build your own vulnerability disclosure policy, the whole 9 yards. It's fully open source, fully open to anybody. Awesome dude. Okay.
Also, sorry, Josh, continue.
No, good.
Oh, I was just saying, also in this article, I knew that this existed, but I hadn't looked at it in a really long time. There's sites that, Gray Hat Warfare, they have a search engine for all open buckets. grayhatwarfare.com. I'm just saying it's there.
Larry's just locked off the next free time for the next 3 weeks.
Hopefully all these buckets are just full of cat photos.
That's all I'm going to say.
Yep.
If it's on the internet, someone will index it in a search engine.
Yep, they will.
Yeah. So there's that. Also, there's I've done this before. Well, not exactly this, but like raise your hand if you've hacked into a security camera on a pen test for the client. Yeah, been there.
Sometimes not even on purpose. Yep.
This particular organization that was being pen tested is a large telecommunications company that will remain nameless, according to this post, which is totally fine. They had a camera platform, but this is the thing that always gets me. The company maintains, this is a quote from the article, the company maintains a custom-built platform/website that certain employees use to manage the camera system. Hold on, stop right there. I built a custom application that takes in all the feeds from my camera system. And guess what? We secured all the API endpoints to this React application except for one. And guess what that API endpoint was providing? The feeds to all the cameras.
The website's publicly accessible, but all the functionality is locked behind a corporate login page. That makes it safe because no one would ever have their corporate logins compromised.
Never. So he says I decided to make a quick desktop application to tap into that imaging server. And then there's pictures from the security cameras. Sometimes doing things yourself doesn't mean it's more secure.
Nope. I mean, clearly I can do it better than you can.
Right. So there's that.
Wow.
My story number 10 was kind of interesting. I kind of want to play around with this. I'm really worried about the security of it, though. It's called SSH. Shix.
Wow.
A secure web-based collaborative terminal.
Oh, is that so you can have more than one hacker at the keyboard at the same time?
Holy crap, I didn't even put those draw those lines together. This is totally so you can have more than one hacker at the keyboard.
Nice. Running
a single command to share your terminal with anyone. It's just like terminal sharing. I thought it was kind of cool. Anyway.
I think that two hackers at the same keyboard. Was that last week we just talked about that?
Yep.
God almighty. No, this would be multiple keyboards for the same session, potentially.
Yep. Everyone does have their own keyboard in this scenario. It's kind of interesting. It was just something fun I wanted to play around with. I don't know that I have an immediate use case for it, other than I think it would be really fun.
Yeah.
To collaborate.
Yep. One of the stories I got, Paul, that was I thought was interesting, just because it seems the targeting on this one was interesting, in my opinion. The Unlucky Cameron, my story number 1. It's a specific set of Android malware that spies on residents of Gilgit-Baltistan, which is a disputed area of Pakistan, that speak Urdu and use a specific news app.
That's odd, not even oddly
specific. Like, that's just... Yeah.
It's just specific.
Yep. And so there are English and Urdu versions of the Android app, and there's only the one that targets the Urdu-speaking folks.
That is really, really specific. That is interesting. Why?
Yeah. So this came from We Live Security, and with research from ESET.
That We Live Security is ESET's news outlet kind of thing.
ESET, the malware folks.
Yeah.
Their research shows that at least 20 mobile devices were compromised.
20.
Wow,
talk about a targeted campaign.
Yeah, but like, what was the target? I don't know. Like, So that particular region has about a population of 1.5 million and, quote, hosts 5 of the esteemed 8,000ers. That's like K2 and Everest and those types of things.
Oh, your story number 2, Larry?
Yeah. Number 1, I ordered you to take a number 2.
The Linux scheduler has been accidentally hard-coded to a maximum of 8 cores for the past 15 years and nobody noticed.
Yep.
As far as I can tell from people that know the Linux kernel and scheduler better than I do, which is a lot of people, totally not true.
Really?
Yeah, they got their math wrong. That's what I read.
Huh.
Because I was like, that's kind of far-fetched. Like, if that was really the case, it would be a bigger story. Largely not true. From what my research says.
Well, also, but then again, the TLDR doesn't mean the scheduler can't use more than 8 cores. It only controls how to allocate tasks to available cores.
So from what I gathered, it's a lot more nuanced than like hard coded to a maximum 8 cores is like a gross kind of overstatement. Like there's a lot more. There's a lot more involved with the way the Linux scheduler works. Like it may mean in some circumstances it may not have been allocating correctly, but it doesn't mean that like every single system with more than 8 cores wasn't using the additional cores, which is kind of what the interpretation is. That's not what's happening there.
The argument in the article is that the official comments in the code says it's using scaling with log to 1 plus cores, but it doesn't. The comments in the code are incorrect. The official documentation and man pages are incorrect, and every blog article, Stack Overflow answer, and guide ever published about the schedule is incorrect. Some pretty
not sweeping or anything.
Yeah, no.
So they're all incorrect. What is correct? What is the actual truth?
It's a great question.
You're saying that it's not hard coded for 8 cores, but that it is, but it's not, but it is, but it's not. So I'm a little confused.
Someone who knows Linux kernel internals to this level, Josh, I think would easily debunk that. Is the comments that I saw that someone that posted it on social media, and the recognizing the people that were commenting were like, yeah, that's just like not true. Was basically what I gleaned from it, Josh. Okay. So I mean, if we have access to like Linux kernel people that could probably easily debunk it. At that, I don't think it's
curious.
Yeah, I'll see if I can dig up the post where I read that.
I'm curious because for somebody to even publish, it's hard coded to lock it down to 8, and if you say, look, there's a subroutine that's locked down to 8, but the normal functionality is unlocked, then okay, I get it. But I'm honestly curious as to what is actually locked down, and does that affect anything?
Reading some of the comments, the 8-core limit only applies to scaling of the time slices. Your headline does not describe the behavior described, which is a shame because it might be an important finding. But then again, Linux scheduler optimized for 8 cores doesn't sell well, so.
So it's not clickbaity if you tell the truth. Got it. Okay.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So
I read the same thing, and then someone, I believe it was on Facebook, had posted that, and then I read the comments.
Yep. That's probably where I got it from, was Facebook.
The comments were from people who I know the Linux kernel well, and they're like, it's not true. Like, they're the devil's in the details kind of thing. Because I can read that and go, wait, I have 24 cores. What does that mean? It's not using all 24 cores? No, that's not true. No, that's not true.
Not just 8. But, yeah. Okay.
Well, you use 8 cores at a time. So you use 8 cores. When they burn out, you use the next 8 cores. And when they burn out. That's just in reserve.
Oh, my goodness.
My next build will be 48 cores for just that reason, Josh.
Hey, rocking and rolling. I was actually just looking at Mac Studios because they're about $1,000 less than the equivalent MacBook Pro. And I'm like, could be fun to go back to Mac. I haven't been a Mac user in 10 years.
The M3s look really nice. And what I've read about the M3, so I recently recommended someone get the M3. They're like, what do I buy? if I'm on Apple. And I'm like, you should buy the M3 because what I've read is the way not so much the processor is highly optimized, but the way it accesses RAM, it uses memory more efficiently on that platform. It's like 8 gigs of RAM really kind of performs more like 12 or whatever, 16. Because of the way that it's so hyper efficient. And partly I believe that because Apple controls the entire ecosystem, right? So they can highly optimize for one specific platform. When you flip over to Intel, like nothing wrong there, but they're selling to hundreds of OEMs that are building systems of all different configurations on all different kinds of operating systems. Like you're just not going to get that optimization. Whereas Apple can go, we own the hardware, the firmware, and all the operating system software. Therefore, we can produce a really highly efficient platform. And it's really amazing.
Yep. Great recommendation unless you want to do virtualization of non-ARM architecture.
A couple of people have posted that they're doing Windows ARM to run Windows kind of thing, and they're like, it works fine. They're running Linux ARM, but if you're cross-platform, I still think that's problematic, right? I don't think there's a. I mean,
great? You can do Windows ARM, but what happens when you go to download a software application that's x86 only? Like everything that you want to use.
I don't know. Some people were on the ARM, Mac platform, and not really complaining that loudly about stuff like that. So I don't know if they had different solutions.
But then again, arguably, you have a couple of virtual machines that you've already built.
Yes.
Yeah. Nope. I mean, you had a couple of virtual machines that you built. You've got to rebuild them all under ARM.
Hey, I'm happy with my framework, and I mean, they just sent an email, I believe today. It said like the next platform is delayed, and they listed all the reasons. They're like, look, we're gonna be fully transparent. This is where we're at. We're working on fleshing out all the bugs. We're working to move to manufacturing as quickly as we can, but we're not going to rush this so that we ship you buggy stuff.
Yep.
We're going to make sure we get it right.
What's the next platform for framework?
So AMDs will run on 13s. So they're looking to ship AMD processor 13-inch ones. They've got the 16s that are AMD or Intel, and those will come shortly thereafter. So I've pre-ordered the framework 16 as my next upgrade.
A whole new laptop.
A whole new laptop. But like knowing that I was in like batch 2, and batch 2 is likely not going to ship till early next year. And I'm like, I'm fine with that. Like, I'm not clamoring for new laptops. So like I got my pre-order in. So I'm like, yeah, like if it's Q1, even if it's Q2, I'm like, that's fine. Get it right before you ship 16, it to me.
So which processor did you order?
The fastest Intel that was available. I forget. I'd have to look up the order.
Didn't get an AMD?
No, I didn't get an AMD. I went Intel for this one. So
okay.
So I mean, is your current AMD or is it Intel?
So this framework is Intel. My desktop is AMD.
Gotcha.
Because to build a ridiculous desktop, it was way cheaper to go Threadripper 24 core. There's the Threadripper 24 core I have on my desktop at home is, for the price, like awesome. If I wanted to redo that build and get slightly better, serious moolah.
Well, just the damn video card is still expensive as hell, even though it's down from what it used to be.
No, I have a 1080 Ti in my desktop
Holy
at home, and it's fine. And I'll tell you what, what's funny is I ran Hashcat.
Yep.
Instantly cracked my SHA-256 Linux shadow file. Like it was
really
dictionary attack. It was instantaneous. I mean, my dictionary wasn't gigantic either, but it was a ridiculous
I've heard
password.
that about
but
you.
Dictionary is not. Yeah, it's not the biggest. It's not the smallest dictionary, but it's not the biggest dictionary. Somewhere in between. It was the BT.
Not the size of the dictionary; it's the quality of the pages.
The quality, and the quality was great, and it cracked instantly. And I'm like, well, I'm pretty happy right now. So we'll look at an upgrade. What my next ridiculous desktop build is going to be. It may be another year or more before I have to do that.
Yeah.
I tell you, I don't like run my system at home and go, yeah, it's running kind of slow. I think I need to upgrade. I'm not at that point yet. I'm just not.
No. I opened Chrome on all 6,000 tabs, and it took 3 seconds to open. Oh my God, it's so slow.
I know.
I honestly, and my framework laptop is still running beautifully. I have almost the same one you do, I think, and I love that thing. But I realized this is more psychological than technical. But if I don't go out to my office, I work in the house, and that's bad because I'm in the way, and I'm eating at the grazing in the kitchen, and I'm not actually like dedicated working at my desk. So I actually haven't even opened my framework in probably 2 weeks. When I want to work, I come out to my office and I go to my desk, or if I'm inside and I need something, I use my phone.
Oh, I want to give props to Noah Dunker, who's been doing some great work on the Axon, on the great work on the M5 stack gear. So this is an M5 Stick C+, and this is the card computer, which runs the, what do they call this? The S3, Stamp S3. There is SP32 based systems, and it's an IoT development platform that doesn't do much unless you can either write the code yourself or find someone like Noah who's written the code to do really cool stuff with it. And there's lots of different, basically firmware options available. They have it in like have you messed with this stuff, Larry or Josh?
Nope.
I have not yet, but I have that on my wish list for Christmas.
Yep. I saw the card computer, and I'm like, I have enough trinkets. And then you bought one, and I'm like, no, I got to get one. So it's going to be in a couple of days.
So they give you like this app that has like a store base, like an app store for this stuff. So you can get other people's code and firmware. It's called M5 Burner. It runs great on Linux, and I was able to flash both of these with Noah's code. He calls it Nemo. And basically, his code, the Nemo code that he wrote, is trying to emulate the Flipper functionality. You're not going to get everything in a Flipper, but it's got an IR chipset on it, and it's got Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. So he emulates some of the attacks on here, and they work really well, and they're really super fun to play around with. I hope to get to the point where I can give him some pull requests. And start making modifications to it. I've already got some ideas on how I can contribute to that. And I think when you post this stuff, everyone's like, "What is that?" Like, I need one of those things. So if you search for M5 Stack, you can find the gear.
So where do you get it? On the internet?
You get it on the internet. Yes, you get it on the internet. I'll let you do the research on your own. Where it's super fun stuff to play with. The card computer.
You can get those toys. Keyboard. You can get those guys on AliExpress or Amazon. And so fuck you and you do your own research, because we're all old and nobody likes doing their own research. But as for Noah Dunker's GitHub, I forget the name of it, but he's really, like, the dude's organized. It's lovely. I've literally got those on my wish list because I never know. My mother-in-law never knows what to get me, so I always save up something for her to get me.
N0XA is Noah's GitHub.
Thank you.
Yeah, he's just done great work on it. And there's lots of other people that have that are writing code for it too. And I want to start writing code for it too. I'm a little rusty on my C programming, but it's a good excuse for me to.
You should just write it in Rust then, if you're rusty.
It's true. Or Python. I think you can do MicroPython. Yeah, you can do Python on these as well, and it doesn't run as great, I don't think, but yeah, it's cool stuff.
Nice.
So I can run we talked about, because we have to talk about BLE Spam every single week. That's my goal.
And the Flipper.
And the Flipper. So you can run that on this platform, which is great. Which is what I had left it running accidentally.
And I still keep getting a message every once in a while, so I don't know. It might just be cached. Yeah, see, I just got one now.
Might be someone else, man, because they're not.
It's not me.
No, all three of my devices are not running the attack right now. Dude, that's someone else.
You have to check multiple devices to make sure you're not running attack. You might be having too many devices in your pockets.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I got the card, the card computer, and I've got the M5 stick, and I've got the Flipper. So,
Is that a Flipper in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me? No, it's a card computer. Let me show you how it works.
Interesting conversation.
Andy's happy to see you.
That's right.
Oh, Josh, here's a good one for a story for you to round us out.
What's that?
Understanding OAuth's bill material maturity model. Have you seen that?
No. Which is that on the list?
It is my story number 4. Somebody else had something similar to. I'm looking to see. I thought it was maybe Sam that had it.
4. Material maturity model. Not all SBOMs are created equal. I will have to take a look at this.
It was Lee. CISA's new SBOM guidance faces implementation challenges.
Yeah, it's not easy. And there's a okay. So the minimum elements for a software bill of material, that was actually the SPDX group helped with NTIA with that.
Yep.
And this was a big, huge discussion. Like what has to be in an SBOM, and the problem is SBOMs are. If I say detail oriented, I'm basically being not very detail oriented about being detail oriented.
Right.
SBOMs are so fucking detail oriented that there is a 7-month long argument about what is a piece of software look like. So how far down do you start dividing up software to get to individual components? And then you serialize them and version them and everything else. And how do you version number them is another multi-year long argument.
Yep.
So it's really the BOM maturity model, and that's great, except that everybody's going to disagree with what should be in what stage of the BOM maturity model.
Right. And then we have organizations that are requiring that you have an SBOM, but they don't say where in the maturity model. They want that SBOMs to have those things, but that SBOM things hasn't made it to the maturity model yet.
And even better, people lie on their SBOMs because they don't want to give you all of their vulnerabilities, especially now that people are starting to require the VEX, the vulnerability exchange readout, so that if you list 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and number 3 has like 10 vulns, number 3 is actually part of number 2, so we're just going to list number 2. We're not going to list number 3. Then you don't have to list the vulns.
Right.
It's ugly.
And I forget where I saw this too. That there is in Europe somewhere, one of the new regulations that's allegedly ready to be passed says that any software that you ship must be free of vulnerabilities, meaning it cannot be subject to any CVEs, even the low ones.
Well, I mean, that's absolutely possible. As long as you don't let anybody examine the software or provide a real SBOM, it's totally free of CVEs. It doesn't mean it's free of vulnerabilities, but it's free of any that are registered as vulnerabilities with the NVD, the National Vulnerability Database.
And I think
it's totally free of CVEs.
And I think that was the part of the thing that was the problem, is that they're requiring an SBOM with VEX, and that the software you ship, basically your VEX should be empty.
So that's the equivalent of telling a kid, hey, you'll get dessert when your room is clean, and you go upstairs and the room is clean and you give them dessert, and then you open their closet to get them clothes for the next day, and you collapse under the weight of the clothes that fall out of the closet.
Yep.
That's the kind of thing we're talking about. Can you tell I have a 5-year-old?
Yes. Don't worry, I have a 10-year-old that does the same thing. So
I have a 15-year-old that does the same thing.
Man, I'm screwed.
I'm
so screwed.
Yep. So, anything else, gentlemen?
That was all I had.
You had some more, but that was the good stuff, right?
That was the good stuff.
It's the good stuff.
The rest are in there for you to peruse. You can check out our show notes for every episode.
Yep.
In your podcast catcher, there should be a link to the show notes for every episode, and you can go check it out.
Yeah. Oh, hey, I got one last little thing. If you're listening to the show and you're a pen tester that focuses on IoT, OT stuff, find a way to get in touch with me. Yeah, there might be some opportunities coming up here soon.
It's good stuff.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for listening and watching this edition of Paul's Security Weekly. Larry, take us out.
Oh, hey. Over